The Middle Ages covered 1,000 years, centuries full of political upheaval, royal intrigue, war, disease, and famine.
Venture into the heart of history, and you'll find the Middle Ages to be a period often cloaked in myths, misconceptions, and mysteries. But as we embark on this exploration, prepare to be amazed by 15 astonishing truths about this era. With each revelation, we will challenge commonly held beliefs and unveil the intricacies of medieval life, inviting you to gain a deeper and more nuanced understanding of this remarkable chapter in human history. Number 15. Trenches, medieval edible plates. In the rich tapestry of medieval Europe, where life was steeped in rituals, traditions, and customs, dining was a grand affair. Surprisingly, at the heart of this culinary ritual was not just the food itself, but also the vessel upon which it was presented, the trencher. Trenchers were ingenious creations, essentially thick slices of stale bread. They served a dual role, acting as plates and flavor-absorbing food companions. These bread plates were typically around 6 inches in diameter and played a pivotal role in serving dishes, especially those with rich gravies or stews. As the meal progressed, the trencher would soak up the flavors, transforming from plain bread into a delectable treat. Trenchers were a practical solution in a world devoid of porcelain dishes and modern utensils. They minimized waste, as the soaked trencher could be consumed after the meal, offering a burst of the meal's flavors. Alternatively, if the diner chose not to eat their trencher, it would be given to the less fortunate as alms, ensuring nothing went to waste. Bread, in its various forms, was a dietary staple in medieval times. Trenchers, often made from coarser grains, emerged out of necessity. Wealthier households could afford to use bread as plates, while those of lower social standing typically consumed more of their bread directly, reserving only the hardest and stalest portions for trenchers. These trenchers held cultural significance as well. At weddings, a trencher filled with food would be passed between the bride and groom, symbolizing their shared life and resources. The trencher kiss was a tradition where a couple would seal their bond with a kiss after sharing a meal from the same trencher. As the late Middle Ages brought advancements in pottery and the availability of wooden and metal plates, the use of bread as a plate gradually waned. Wooden trenchers became more common, but they retained the name as a nod to their edible predecessors. Today, the concept of an edible plate might seem like a novelty, perhaps reserved for high-end restaurants or eco-friendly campaigns against plastic waste. However, in the medieval world, it was a way of life, a testament to the creativity of a time when even the plate itself was a source of innovation and resourcefulness. Number 14. Misconceptions about the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages often received criticism for being perceived as stagnant and irrational. However, this view doesn't do justice to the complexities of the time. Consider the notion that medieval people seldom ventured far from their birthplaces, sometimes perishing nearby. While it's true that many medieval citizens, especially in rural areas, led localized lives, this wasn't unique to their era. Throughout history, people have often stayed close to their origins. Contrary to the belief that medieval people were firmly rooted in one spot, many did engage in significant travel. Pilgrimages, for instance, covered thousands of miles and led individuals to distant destinations. Traders also embarked on extensive journeys, facilitating the exchange of goods across vast distances. Even in the early Middle Ages, Europe imported sought-after products like amber, furs, and spices from Asia through Middle Eastern trade routes. Some adventurous travelers documented their escapades. One such daring explorer was William of Rubruck, who embarked on a remarkable 3-year expedition across what is now Russia and Ukraine in 1253. His journey challenged the notion of limited mobility in the Middle Ages. The era also saw immigration, with Welsh, Scottish, and Irish immigrants sometimes facing less than welcoming receptions in medieval England. Interestingly, not all unions were solemnized within church walls. Church weddings were rare, and formal recognition of unions often occurred at the churchyard gate. Religious rituals or the presence of a priest were not prerequisites for medieval weddings. To dispel another misconception, it's important to note that witch hunts were not a medieval church practice. Widespread witch hunts and the fear of evil witches were phenomena of the early modern period, peaking in the 16th and 17th centuries. While occasional witch trials did occur in the Middle Ages, especially in the 15th century, these were primarily initiated by civil authorities rather than religious figures. This highlights the need for a more nuanced examination of historical eras. Number 13. The Dark Ages. While the Middle Ages often conjure images of darkness and despair, it's worth exploring whether this era truly lived up to its sad reputation. Beyond the undeniable challenges such as disease outbreaks and the protracted Hundred Years' War, the medieval period was also marked by significant strides in science and education. Amidst the shadows of the Dark Ages, the era witnessed the establishment of illustrious institutions like the universities of Oxford and Cambridge. These venerable seats of learning would go on to shape the intellectual landscape for centuries to come. During this period, brilliant minds like philosopher Thomas Aquinas and mathematician Leonardo Fibonacci emerged, contributing significantly to the intellectual tapestry of the time. The Middle Ages weren't solely a time of intellectual awakening, they also witnessed a flourishing of the arts. Romanesque architecture, in particular, emerged as a groundbreaking international art trend, characterized by its distinctive features such as large round arches, imposing stone and brickwork, slender windows, thick walls, and a penchant for depicting biblical subjects. Romanesque art and sculpture left an indelible mark on the artistic landscape of the era. The Gothic movement took center stage as time passed, showcasing an intricate and elaborate design aesthetic. Gothic architecture left an enduring legacy with its hallmark features like towering stained glass windows, elegant pointed arches, delicate rib vaults, and flying buttresses. In fact, this architectural style was so influential that it was chosen for iconic structures like Westminster Abbey, only to experience a revival centuries later during the Gothic Revival in England, particularly during the late Victorian era. So while the Middle Ages may have faced their fair share of challenges, it's essential to acknowledge the remarkable advancements in science, education, and the arts that illuminated this seemingly dark chapter in history. Number 12. Flying toilets. The Middle Ages, spanning roughly from the 5th to the late 15th century, was a time of remarkable innovation, chivalric tales, and architectural marvels. However, beneath the grandeur of Gothic cathedrals and bustling towns, a less glamorous but fascinating aspect of daily life often goes overlooked: sanitation. In the narrow streets of densely populated medieval European towns, waste disposal, especially human waste, presented a unique challenge. Unlike the Roman legacy of aqueducts and public bathhouses, much of the sanitation infrastructure had crumbled by the Middle Ages, forcing towns to improvise. In the absence of sewer systems, residents adopted a rather straightforward method: tossing waste out of windows. This practice gave rise to the term garde-à-l'eau, derived from the French garde-l'eau, meaning watch out for the water. It was a warning before chamber pots were emptied into the streets below, earning the unflattering nickname flying toilets. Walking through these streets required ingenuity, as pedestrians used wooden platforms or stepping stones to avoid the filth. The situation became particularly dire during rainy days, turning streets into foul-smelling streams. However, it's important to note that medieval townsfolk were not entirely apathetic to the issue. Town authorities imposed fines on those caught improperly disposing of waste, and guilds were formed to manage waste and sporadically clean the streets. Some towns even constructed rudimentary drainage systems to redirect waste away from populated areas. Yet European rivers like the Thames in London and the Seine in Paris bore the brunt of urban waste, causing pollution issues that would persist for centuries. It wasn't until the Renaissance and later the Industrial Revolution that comprehensive sewage systems emerged, revolutionizing urban sanitation. Reflecting on the flying toilets of the Middle Ages offers a stark reminder of the challenges of urban living and the resourcefulness of people in trying circumstances. It highlights the importance of infrastructure and town planning, lessons that remain relevant today as cities grapple with modern waste management challenges. Number 11. The Dancing Plague. Ever found yourself swaying to music's rhythm, lost in its embrace? Well, your ancestors did more than tap their toes for fun. They also grappled with peculiar dance-related ailments. In the heart of the Middle Ages, a bizarre phenomenon known as the dancing plague struck, causing some individuals to dance themselves to death. The intriguing tale begins in July 1518 in Strasbourg, when a woman named Frau Trophea stepped onto the streets and inexplicably began to dance, showing no signs of stopping. Her one-woman dance party continued for over a week, and soon, about a dozen more Strasbourg residents were swept up in this compulsion. By the end of August, an astonishing 400 people had perished due to this pandemic. Local physicians attributed this strange outbreak to the concept of hot blood, suggesting that the afflicted could dance their fever away. They even brought in professional dancers and set up a stage with a band for accompaniment. Many participants collapsed from exhaustion, while others suffered fatal heart attacks and strokes. This puzzling episode persisted until September, when the affected dancers were taken to a mountainside shrine and asked for pardon for their strange ailment. The Strasbourg dancing plague may sound like a legend, but it is well documented in historical records from the 16th century. Moreover, it wasn't an isolated incident, as similar dancing manias occurred in regions like Switzerland, Germany, and Holland, though with less severity and fewer casualties. Number 10. Busy cemeteries. Today, cemeteries evoke tranquility and solemnity, serving as places for heartfelt farewells to our dearly departed. However, during the Middle Ages, these resting grounds were anything but silent, serving as vibrant social hubs where myriad activities unfolded. It's fascinating to contrast our modern aversion to passing by cemeteries with the bustling scenes of medieval times. In stark contrast to today's perception, cemeteries in the Middle Ages were more than mere resting places for the deceased. They were integral parts of the community fabric. These burial grounds were not concealed behind imposing walls or hidden away. They were lively, communal spaces. In fact, they often doubled as marketplaces, buzzing with life. Rumor has it that gambling and drinking were common occurrences within their hallowed grounds. In a somewhat unconventional turn, many prostitutes plied their trade there, possibly offering a more budget-friendly alternative to traditional brothels. As a testament to the liveliness of these spaces, it's worth noting that cemeteries weren't always sanctuaries of serenity. When the Rhône River in Avignon would flood, it would unearth buried bodies, suggesting that these interments weren't particularly deep. While the church advocated for a spiritual resurrection, the prevailing belief among most people was a physical one. Hence, ossuaries were constructed, housing at least a few leg bones and a skull. When the plague struck and cemeteries ran out of space, the practice of exhuming family heirlooms became common in the early Middle Ages. Initially misconstrued as grave robbing, a closer examination revealed that specific items like swords and brooches with generational significance were taken, while personal items such as knives were left undisturbed in the graves. This nuanced approach to grave exhumations aligns with historical attitudes toward such cherished possessions. Number 9. Pointy shoes, a fashion statement. In the midst of the Middle Ages, with grand tapestries and formidable fortifications, the poulain was a distinct and polarizing fashion choice with its long, pointed toe. Known as the Krakow poulain for its link to Poland, it emerged in the late 14th century and gained popularity across Europe, especially among elites in England and France. The length of the pointed toe, or pike, signified social status, with some reaching an astonishing 24 inches. The poulain was made with a flexible leather toe, often stuffed with moss or wool to maintain its shape. Some were linked to the wearer's knee with chains or slender wooden rods to prevent dragging. Beyond its striking appearance, it symbolized a life of luxury and leisure, disconnecting wearers from labor-intensive tasks or combat. However, by the late 15th century, authorities had imposed restrictions on poulains due to their impracticality and hazards. Paris, for instance, regulated the length of shoe points based on social status. Changing fashion trends and the rise of other shoe styles led to the poulain's decline. As the Middle Ages transitioned into the Renaissance, it faded, replaced by broader and more practical footwear. Yet it remains a relic of the past and a testament to the extremes people go to for fashion. In retrospect, the poulain is a reminder of how fashion trends change and the enduring human desire to stand out, even at the cost of convenience. Number 8. Greek fire. Greek fire, a game-changing invention in battle, lived up to its name as a fearsome incendiary weapon used by the Byzantine Empire. This 7th century marvel helped the Byzantines fend off Arab invasions, especially at sea. What makes Greek fire truly captivating is that those who captured it couldn't replicate it, nor could they recreate the delivery system. The exact recipe remains a mystery to this day. The Byzantines also referred to it as sea fire or liquid fire. Greek fire was a heated, pressurized substance that flowed through a tube called a siphon. Its primary purpose was to set enemy ships ablaze from a safe distance. The remarkable aspect of Greek fire was its ability to keep burning even on water, leaving adversaries helpless in their attempts to extinguish it during battles. The legendary inventor of Greek fire is believed to be Callinicos of Heliopolis, a Jewish architect who fled Syria for Constantinople to escape Arab conquest. Callinicos conducted countless experiments until he stumbled upon the perfect incendiary formula. While the Byzantine emperors and the Callinicos family held the secret, the precise details have sadly been lost to history. Number 7. Honeyed hair, medieval bleaching techniques. Much like our modern fixation on aesthetics, medieval life was richly colored by the importance of personal appearance and beauty rituals. In this vibrant tapestry of history, the allure of golden hair held a special fascination for many medieval women. For those not naturally blessed with this shade, the quest for blonde locks was an endeavor of great dedication, as it was seen as a symbol of youth, purity, and beauty. One ingenious method employed honey and the gentle caress of sunlight. Honey, that sweet elixir produced by bees, has been cherished for centuries for its delightful taste and its numerous health and cosmetic benefits. Thanks to its high glucose and fructose content, honey possesses natural humectant properties, drawing moisture to the hair. This made it an ideal ingredient for hair treatments, as it lightened the hair and provided much-needed moisture. Some variations of this technique combine honey with other elements like vinegar, lemon juice, or wine to enhance the bleaching effect. For instance, lemon, rich in citric acid, amplified the lightening effects when paired with honey. Although effective, this ancient bleaching process was time-consuming and demanded patience. The journey towards achieving blonde hair was just as significant as the destination itself. This method starkly contrasted with the harsh chemical dyes and treatments that would emerge in subsequent generations. It underscores the enduring nature of beauty standards and the lengths people have gone to conform to them. Throughout history, enhancing one's natural beauty has been a constant theme, as exemplified by the golden tresses of medieval Europe. It's fascinating to envision a time when the path to achieving golden hair involved nothing more than sunlight and honey, especially as we navigate today's labyrinth of salon treatments and hair dyes. Number 6. Urine as disinfectant. The use of human urine in historical medical practices may seem rather unappealing today, but it held remarkable value in its time. Urine, often taken for granted nowadays, has many intriguing applications in the field of medicine. In ancient Rome, the renowned physician Celsus the Elder advocated using fresh urine to treat wounds, burns, irritations, chapped skin, and scorpion stings. Additionally, a concoction of aged urine mixed with ash alleviated infant diaper rash. Moving forward to early modern Europe, some medical pioneers took even bolder steps. Ambroise Paré, a groundbreaking French surgeon, discovered that soaking sore and stinging eyelids overnight in a basin filled with the patient's urine could provide soothing relief. The father of chemistry, Robert Boyle, even suggested a daily morning regimen for certain patients, the consumption of their warm urine. Thomas Willis, the wealthiest physician in England at the time, echoed this unusual advice, even as those seeking a second opinion received the same counsel. A particularly memorable anecdote involves Italian physician Leonardo Fioravanti, who, in the midst of a dispute around 1550, responded to a man's severed nose by immediately applying his urine to the injured organ before skillfully reattaching it. Thomas Vicary, the surgeon to Henry VII, recommended cleansing war wounds with urine, highlighting their sterility upon leaving the body. This practice was also suggested for treating ulcers that could develop into gangrenous sores, or alleviating the effects of dangerous bites and stings. Contrary to common belief, urine was considered a safer cleaning agent than water. Interestingly, even in more recent times, urine had its uses. During the First World War, soldiers wore cotton patches soaked in their urine as makeshift gas masks. This was because the ammonia in urine could neutralize the effects of chlorine gas used in warfare. In hindsight, we can be grateful for the existence of modern alternatives like alcohol wipes. These historical practices remind us of the fascinating journey that medicine has undertaken over the centuries, leaving behind some rather unconventional remedies along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that exciting time again when we dive into our subscribers' intriguing picks. Imagine yourself transported back to the enigmatic Middle Ages, a time shrouded in mysteries and riddles. In the image before us, we are presented with an enigma that would have left even the most astute minds of that era scratching their heads. Are these two gracefully poised women actually conjoined twins, or is there more to this story? Moreover, it appears that they may have held the title of princesses, a status that could have sparked both admiration and fear during the Middle Ages. Were they celebrated or condemned as abominations and witches? The answers lie in the annals of history. As we gaze upon this image, another question arises. Are we witnessing a clever optical illusion, a trick of the eye that has confounded generations? The possibilities are as numerous as the stars in the night sky. Now, it's your turn to join this intriguing discussion. Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below, and let's ignite a spirited debate. Together, we'll peel back the layers of history and uncover the truth behind this captivating puzzle. Number 5. Bloodletting. Bloodletting, a peculiar medical practice, stands out as a fascinating chapter in the history of medicine during the Middle Ages. Unlike the modern use of blood transfusions to replenish lost blood, medical practitioners in the Middle Ages employed a starkly different approach to treating illnesses. They extracted blood from their patients. This procedure involved the doctor using a lancet or a sharpened piece of wood to open a vein, allowing the blood to flow into a waiting container. If fortune smiled upon you, your physician might opt for leeches instead of more rudimentary tools for this somewhat taxing task. The roots of bloodletting can be traced back to ancient Egypt before they made their way to Greece. In Greece, luminaries like Ersistartus, who thrived in the 3rd century BC, believed that an overabundance of blood was the cause of all diseases. Consequently, bloodletting emerged as the go-to remedy for a wide spectrum of ailments in medieval Europe, ranging from the plague and smallpox to epilepsy and gout. Typically, practitioners would use a flame or a specialized tool with a fixed blade to nick veins or arteries in the forearm. In an intriguing twist, a church edict issued in 1163 prohibited monks and priests from performing bloodletting as the church disapproved of the procedure. This was significant because many monks and priests also served as doctors during that era. Seizing the opportunity for profit, barbers began offering various medical services, including lancing, cupping, tooth extractions, and even amputations. In response to this ecclesiastical injunction, esteemed doctors and surgeons began prescribing bloodletting to their most distinguished patients, alongside their usual haircuts and shaves. Even historical figures like Marie Antoinette turned to bloodletting for medical purposes, as she underwent the procedure while giving birth to her first child, Marie Therese, in 1778. These intriguing practices remind us of the intricate tapestry of medical history, where seemingly bizarre methods were once considered the pinnacle of medical science. Number 4. Teeth blackening, a sign of wealth. Much like our time and various cultures worldwide, the medieval era exhibited a fascinating array of aesthetic standards. One beauty ritual that may strike us as rather astonishing today is the practice of darkening teeth, which is particularly prevalent in parts of Southeast Asia and Japan. Surprisingly, blackened teeth were not considered unsightly, but a symbol of sophistication, attractiveness, and affluence. The technique, known as ohaguro in Japan, involved a concoction of iron filings, vinegar, and vegetable tannins. This mixture would react and produce a dark dye, which was then meticulously applied to the teeth, resulting in a glossy black hue. Far from being taboo, having black teeth was a status symbol, indicating wealth and prestige. This cosmetic procedure was a luxury affordable only to those of higher social standing, rendering it an exclusive practice. Moreover, married women favored blackened teeth, signifying maturity and commitment. While this historical trend may appear peculiar to us today, it serves as a vivid reminder of the relativity of beauty standards and the profound influence of social norms and cultural contexts on our perceptions of beauty. Number 3. Football got banned. Soccer, also known as football, boasts a global fan base that spans millions, with a pinnacle of excitement at events like the World Cup. Yet, this beloved sport has quite a tumultuous history with English royalty. England's footballing heritage stretches back through the annals of time. Picture this: rival teams vying to move an inflated pig's bladder across their towns or villages, an unruly game known as mob football in medieval England. Kicking, punching, and general chaos were the order of the day. Rules were a mere suggestion. Even today, England occasionally revives this boisterous tradition on Shrove Tuesday with events like Scoring the Hales in Alnwick, Northumberland. However, a royal twist emerges in the story. King Edward II, back in the day, made a rather unpopular call, banning football within the city walls of London, fearing its influence on the genteel citizens. Then, in 1349, as the Black Death ravaged the land, his son Edward III, with an eye on bolstering England's archery prowess for military conquests in France and Scotland, made the decisive move of outlawing football. His reasoning: football was a distraction that threatened to deter able-bodied men from mastering the art of the bow and arrow. But we also find a surprising link between English royalty and football footwear. The first pair of soccer boots is attributed to the athletic monarch, Henry VII. This avid sportsman was rumored to possess a collection of 45 pairs of velvet shoes and one solitary leather pair meant for football. Later in his reign, perhaps due to his expanding waistline and diminished agility, Henry VII banned football in 1548, citing riots as the primary concern. Yet some suspect his ban was rooted in his inability to keep up with the sport he once loved. Number 2. Brewsters, women as brewers. Hidden within the vast pages of history are narratives that are often overlooked. One such underappreciated story revolves around the pivotal role played by women, known as brewsters, in the medieval brewing industry. Back in medieval towns and villages, women held the reins of the brewing trade, a stark contrast to today's male-dominated and corporate beer industry. In a time when drinking water quality was dubious at best, brewing became a household affair, and women were the masterminds behind the production of the essential beverage, ale. They managed every facet of the process, from sourcing ingredients to overseeing fermentation and sales. This extended their domestic responsibilities, encompassing managing household resources and preparing meals. As the popularity of ale soared, so did its potential for commerce. Drawing on their expertise, many women transitioned from home brewing to establishing ale houses and small-scale breweries. This entrepreneurial spirit allowed them to earn a living and significantly impact the local economy. However, as brewing evolved into a lucrative industry, gender norms shifted and economic interests grew. This shift led to the exclusion of women from the brewing scene. With the rise of guilds and male-dominated economic structures in the late Middle Ages, women were gradually pushed out of the brewing industry. The once celebrated brewsters faded into obscurity as brewing moved from homes to larger facilities. This transformation serves as a poignant reminder of the malleability of gender norms and the profound influence of socioeconomic factors on various industries. Moreover, it underscores the fact that many of today's professions have deep-rooted histories intertwined with the often unsung contributions of pioneering women. Number 1. Stretcher sample. In the intriguing Middle Ages era, justice seekers faced a peculiar challenge when attempting to unravel mysteries that had perplexed them on Earth. Their quest for truth often ventured into the realms of the supernatural, as the concept of forensic science, as we know it today, was but a distant dream. Instead, they turned to a curious practice known as cruentation, a term derived from the Latin verb cruentatio, meaning to stain with blood, or cruentari, meaning to make bloody. In their quest to identify murderers, the ancients believed that the afterlife held the key. They posited that the body retained its ability to perceive and respond even after death, creating the term bright, bestowed upon the bier or barrow that held a body or coffin. The process was as unusual as it was enigmatic. Imagine a scene where the victim lay exposed, vulnerable, and lifeless on their back. On the other hand, the suspected culprit stood at a distance, preparing to engage in an eerie ritual. With bated breath, he approached the deceased, calling out the victim's name and carefully circling the body twice or thrice. Then, with a sense of trepidation, he would lightly pat the wounds with his palm. During this eerie communion with the deceased, the observers anxiously watched for signs of life from the corpse. If fresh bleeding occurred, the body exhibited movement or foam mysteriously emerged from the mouth. The verdict was swift and merciless. The accused was declared guilty of murder, and the case was promptly closed. However, these observers likely witnessed not some supernatural phenomenon, but rather a natural occurrence known as purge fluid, which flows during decomposition. This fluid, resembling blood in appearance, often emerges from a decaying body's mouth, nose, and other orifices, easily leading the uninitiated to mistake it for a supernatural sign. It serves as a chilling reminder of how our understanding of science has evolved, shedding light on practices that once shrouded the pursuit of justice in an aura of mystery and mysticism. What are your thoughts on these intriguing Middle Ages things we've just explored? We're eager to hear your thoughts.